Obviously, Marjorie Greene has been on the receiving end of these Trump attacks, the toxicity and all of that stuff. I don't know if she's like dead in MAGA. I think that they have kind of split loyalties at this point. And obviously there's a lot of MAGA people that seem to want to distance themselves from Trump and go for a more actually America first sort of thing. But that said, she has kind of distanced herself from her own past with only the most minor acknowledgements of it. And so when she was on 60 Minutes with Lesley Stahl tried to get her to own up to it a little bit more substantively. And so Greene said, it's the most toxic political culture and it's not helping the American people. To which Stahl said, but you contributed to that. You were out there pounding, insulting people. And Greene says, Lesley, you've contributed to it as well with your, Stahl says, me? Greene says, yes, you're accusatory just like you did just then. Stahl says, I know you're accusing me, but I'm smiling. Greene says, you're accusing me. Stahl says, I am accusing you. It's fascinating television. But anyway, so yes, Lesley Stahl is accusing Greene of being wildly, violently toxic in the past. And the reason Lesley Stahl can do that is because it's true, she did that. And Marjorie Greene, I just want to point out, when you like stalk a congresswoman and like lean over and speak through the mail thing, and then you stalk a shooting survivor in the streets, and then you post these violent memes, and then you constantly say Islamophobic and transphobic things, you do all of that, and you don't just do it, but that's your brand. That's why you won, and you know it. And that's how you generate money, and that's how you generate attention. And you ride that for years and years and years until maybe you no longer like it anymore, and you see a different bicycle that you want to get on. And you do all of that. And Lesley Stahl points that out. Yes, Lesley Stahl's accusing you of something, but she's not being unfair. She's not being toxic. Those things aren't equal, Marjorie Greene. Even you must acknowledge those things are not equal. But anyway, Greene says, but we don't have to accuse one another. But no, she's an interviewer. It is her job sometimes to point things out. Now, if you want to feel accused of something, that's fine. That's one word you can put to it, but she's not wrong to do that. And Stahl says, I want you to respond to what you've done in terms of insulting people, yelling at people, and then saying, Greene cuts in, I'd like for you to respond for that. No, you can respond for that. Stahl says, I don't insult people. Greene says, you do in the way you question, and you're accusing me right now. And I don't know Lesley Stahl, but you tried. I mean, what more can you do, Lesley Stahl? Greene, you've done sick, twisted, weird things. I watched you grope the cardboard crotch of Donald Trump on video, and I can't get it out of my head. It's been a while. I feel like it's clearer in my mind than it was before, and you did that to all of us. So don't get mad at Lesley Stahl when she points this out. It's not an insult by its very nature. It might be an insult in that the things she's pointing out you did, and accurately doing so, make you feel bad, but they should make you feel bad. That's not her problem, that's your problem. JR?
First off, John, I was about to hang up on this call since you brought up the cardboard cutout, because it actually had been deleted from my brain until just now. I remember it vividly now. Damn it.
Yeah.
Anyways, so and this, by the way, the reason we're not running 60 Minutes because 60 Minutes doesn't like people running their things. But you guys should really see how that interaction went down with Lesley Stahl when they went back and forth about you're doing the bad thing, no, you're doing the bad thing. It was weird because Marjorie Taylor Greene almost seemed like she wasn't ready for anyone to point out how much of a piece of garbage she's been over the past several years, how much all the things that she's done. She thinks she can really talk about toxicity in politics and not be pointed out for being one of the main standard bearers of that. It's amazing that she wasn't ready for that. She genuinely looked surprised. I would have expected her to be ready to answer that question with some BS about how she really wasn't that person and what, I don't know, who knows what she could possibly say. Maybe she has no answer because it's impossible to come back after all we've seen of her entire brand being, and she somehow thinks, well, we just have to stop fighting. How about you acknowledge the things that you've done and then try and remedy those things before you try and get any trust from anybody else? There was literally finger pointing in that exchange. You guys should actually go watch it.
Yeah, and thank you for pointing that out. JR is of course the video guy. Yeah, I would play it if we could, but unfortunately we can't. We would be destroyed. Oh, I have no doubt that many channels on like Twitch and stuff are able to use it and get no trouble whatsoever. And obviously everybody can post it on Twitter. We're literally the only person that can't play this stuff, which is the law, but only we're held to it. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. But anyway, let's move on to one other issue. If you've been following American politics since Donald Trump came down that escalator, you know that a lot of Republicans have gone through this process where initially they were, not buying Donald Trump. They were mocking Donald Trump, pointing out how dangerous he was because all of that stuff is what any reasonable person would do. But then he took over. And they would very much like to still have jobs and power and money and go to fancy dinners and stuff. So now they don't say that stuff anymore. Every once in a while, we get reminded of that from someone who was formerly like them on the inside and is now looking in from the outside. Marjorie Greene is a great example of that. And that came up while she was on 60 Minutes. Lesley Stahl said to her, I'm gonna ask you about this almost solid support Trump has among Republicans in Congress. Is there, in that support, fear? Does the support come about because they're afraid they'll get death threats? Stahl asked. I think they're terrified to step out of line and get a nasty True Social post on them. Yes, Greene said, and she's obviously right, but it's still important to get it from a MAGA person. Lesley Stahl says, and they're watching what happened to you. Greene says, yes. Stahl says, behind the scenes, do they talk differently? Greene says, yes. How? Oh, it would shock people. Lesley Stahl says, well, let's shock people. And Greene says, okay, I've watched many of my colleagues go from making fun of him, making fun of how he talks, making fun of me constantly for supporting him, to when he won the primary in 2024, they all started, excuse my language, Lesley, kissing his ass and decided to put on a MAGA hat for the first time. I think a lot of that happened way before 2024. I think she's kind of off on the timeline there, but that process is indisputable. It did happen. And so, I don't know, I don't know what would really matter because pointing this out doesn't seem to get through to MAGA people. They don't, and this is kind of reasonable. They don't seem to mind that people in either right-wing media or politics are super two-faced as long as the face they now have is the one the person would want them to have. Like Tucker Carlson being outed as a complete and utter fraud who hated Donald Trump, thought he was a destroyer, no respect for him, but would go on his show and be like, oh, he's great, he's the best, and he supported him for president. To a MAGA person, it's like, well, good, yeah. I want you to say those nice things about him. I don't really care what you really believe because they don't apparently crave authenticity the way normal people do. So I don't know, JR, what would actually get through to them? Would it be, like, do we need videotape of these people? I mean, we have the tweets, we have the text messages of JD Vance. That didn't seem to matter. Why is it that they don't care? Because I feel like you and I, and probably a lot of people watching this, we would be bothered if we found out that, I don't know, we have like tweets from 6 years ago where AOC is like, this goddamn Bernie, he's such a socialist. I hate his guts. He's a destroyer. I feel like that would bother me a little bit. What do you think?
The worst part is we don't even need to go searching for these moments. When this guy first started, they called him a disaster. Ted Cruz said he's disrespectful and despicable. And you talk about Heidi, you come after me, I'm gonna beat you, damn it. All that stuff. And the next thing he's on the phone, kissing his ass. As recently as last week, he's standing over Donald Trump as Donald Trump is calling the affordability thing a hoax. And this dummy's over him nodding his head. Like, it's crazy. Ted Cruz is one of those people on the list. You don't have to look for things or look for something to uncover about JD Vance. He called him America's Hitler. He said he's a disaster. Lindsey Graham, who finds himself on his knees every opportunity, talks about how Donald Trump is gonna destroy the Republican Party. And if we support him, we deserve what we get. They've said it all. These folks up to January 6th, they blamed him for inciting the violence. That is until they then got behind his back and then said that he didn't. They constantly turn on him. And then afterwards, they go back to kissing his ass. And we're supposed to forget all these moments when they did it. It's exactly what they do. So even right now, as now Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying a different level of acting like she wasn't always kissing his ass and revealing all this other stuff. She goes a little bit one step further because she's fully detaching herself from him now, I guess. But she's never gonna point out how she was always on board. And then she was the one who facilitated this whole thing. She just kind of did it backwards. The other guys hated him at first and then got behind his back. She was behind his back the whole time and then decided to turn now because she thinks it's politically expedient. So I don't trust any of them.
Yeah. No, there's no reason you should. And you don't need to. We could just see what happens and most of it will probably be bad.